Welcome to the Living with Narcissists podcast, where the first recommendation is don't. But unfortunately, that's not always possible. So this is your haven for validation, insight, strategies, and resources. So let's get started. Welcome, I'm Carrie, and this is the Living with Narcissists podcast. Today's episode will focus on the disorganized attachment style and how it's related to narcissism. In the last episode, we learned that research has shown that it's more likely that a classic, overt, grandiose narcissist is high in avoidant attachment style. This episode will explore how the covert, vulnerable narcissist is high in disorganized attachment style. As we discussed in Season 2, a disorganized attachment style is an attachment issue, not a personality disorder. Covert, vulnerable narcissism, a variant of NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, is a cluster B personality disorder, which is referred to as the dramatic emotional erratic cluster. It's important to remember that a person can have a disorganized attachment style, a form of insecure attachment, but still not fulfill the criteria in the DSM for a cluster B personality disorder. As I keep repeating, this is a continuum starting with a disorganized attachment style, moving up to covert vulnerable narcissism, a variation of NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, which is a cluster B personality disorder. As we learned in Season 2, the disorganized attachment style is characterized by both avoidant and anxious attachment behaviors. A person with a disorganized attachment would like to have emotionally close relationships, but they fear being hurt or let down. They have a negative view of themselves, low self-esteem, low self-worth, and a negative view of others because they distrust people. This attachment style is called disorganized because of the relationship patterns that typically lack coherence. On one hand, they have a strong desire for emotional closeness and intimacy, and on the other hand, they have an extreme fear of rejection, so they avoid emotional closeness by pushing others away. This creates a pattern of behaviors called approach avoidance conflict. That means the individual desires something that has both positive and negative implications. For example, intimacy can offer closeness and acceptance, positive, or conflict and rejection if people don't agree, negative. This pattern is acted out when the individual approaches what they want only to avoid it, and then repeats the pattern, approach, avoid, over and over again. When the individual has a disorganized attachment style, or whether they are a covert vulnerable narcissist, cluster B, they hold a negative view of themselves and others. Both are emotionally labile, which means they have rapid and extreme changes in mood. Their moods can change faster than you can blink. Both have a considerable fear of relationships because they feel inadequate to initiate and maintain their relationships. As a reminder, the disorganized attachment style is the category that describes children with the most significant attachment problems due to their history of abuse and severe neglect. In a large analysis of over 80 studies, it was determined that up to 80% of the children with a history of parental maltreatment or drug abuse have a disorganized attachment. By contrast, only about 15% of children from low-risk families have a disorganized attachment, cited by researchers Van Isendorn in 1999 and Green and Goldwyn in 2002. If you have not listened to episode 4 from season 2 regarding the disorganized attachment style, I encourage you to do so. Just being around someone with this attachment style, never mind being in a relationship, is very challenging to say the least. Unpredictable behavior, paranoid suspicion, and the lack of trust can be very hurtful and very frightening. So it's not surprising that this is my most listened to episode, with about 1/3 more plays than the runner-up, which is about the dismissive avoidant attachment style discussed in season 2, episode 3. Although covert vulnerable narcissism and a disorganized attachment style may develop in a similar way, the child experiences abuse, rejection, and cruel behavior from caregivers or peers. Not every individual with a disorganized attachment style becomes a covert vulnerable narcissist. There are very important differences between the two. The covert vulnerable narcissism can stem from a disorganized attachment style, but it must be combined with a strong underlying belief of entitlement and superiority. Make no doubt, the covert vulnerable narcissist can appear to be constrained, humble, and empathetic, but they're still narcissists because of their grandiose, entitled self-image, which is rarely revealed outwardly. Deep down, they have the same core beliefs around their entitlement as the grandiose narcissist. However, they tend to deny this and conceal it with feigned humility and feigned empathy. And while the overt grandiose narcissist will dismiss and ignore threats to their superiority and entitlement, the covert vulnerable narcissist will experience shame, depression, and brewing anger when their superiority and entitlement is challenged. Despite desires for emotional closeness and love, people with a disorganized attachment style generally avoid relationships out of fear of being hurt. But vulnerable narcissists, just like the classic overt grandiose peers, seek relationships to satisfy their narcissistic needs rather than seeking close and intimate bonds with other people. Vulnerable, covert narcissists believe that they're superior and fantasize about being idolized and powerful, but fear that others will not see or treat them according to their grandiose fantasies. They will avoid relationships because they anticipate that their entitled needs will not be satisfied. They experience shame for needing anything from other people at all, and as a result, they avoid relationships. They exploit and manipulate people in a variety of ways. They exploit their time, they exploit their money, they exploit their resources, and their fragile self-esteem, when their grandiose fantasies are challenged by reality or they receive critical feedback from others, they will experience narcissistic injury, and the covert vulnerable narcissist will become emotionally unstable. The space between reality and their grandiose fantasies is called the grandiosity gap. Anything that closes the grandiosity gap is considered to be a threat and may cause the covert vulnerable narcissist to experience anxiety, depression, rage, or even temporary psychosis. Their distortion of reality can become so delusional that they cross over the line from neurosis to psychosis. Many consider this to be the most dangerous form of narcissism because it's hard to see. The covert vulnerable narcissist is aware that their narcissistic traits are socially undesirable, so they knowingly conceal them. This means that they are aware that they are manipulating, exploiting, and hurting people, but they simply don't care. They want what they want, when they want it, and they want it now. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this information is helpful. If you like my content, please choose to follow, subscribe, or provide a rating so I can share this information with more people and you don't miss out on future episodes. I look forward to sharing more in the future. Have a wonderfully peaceful day. Till next time.